It's
It actually contradicts their claims about the efficacy of vaccinations.
Absolutely
I thought that was number one.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to always say their gobbledygook pseudoscience is number one, but the bottom line is it's illegitimate.
All right. Okay. Last one. We're only on number 2 here.
Yeah, dude. We're.
I love it.
5G. Oh, gosh.
So,
it's so in your face.
Look, I have a relative who is setting up telephone poles all over the country, subcontractor for what, it's happening. The wireless companies are calculating where you have devices, at what elevation, at what geocoordinate, and they are rolling this out. The question is for why and for who. I think it is just the next infrastructural upgrade to power the new surveillance state, the AI,
definitely,
the high speed data transfer that's required to deliver all of the information they're going to be collecting from all the new device data, the sensor data, the geospatial data, the social data, the microphone data, the video data that's going to be captured from the devices that are rolled out. And that's another subject. The health dangers are one thing, but the other dangers are in another subject, which is what I call surveillanceification of society.
Right. The technotronic era.
Yeah,
definitely. And
so health-wise, it's purported, right, that these new high-frequency waves vibrate the chains of the DNA molecule. I've seen some videos where people are accepting 5G phone calls with steel wool around the phone, and the steel wool catches on fire from the radiation. Could be just
who knows?
Who knows, right? But I see these towers being set up. You can drive down I-40, I-85. You see these purported trees, these fucking trees with obvious, high-powered antennas jutting off of them.
Right.
It's been reported these are oftentimes Stingray equipped towers that are just gobbling up any and all data that's and telephone poles are being installed in major cities around the country, which have microphone and wireless transmit. It's all tied into the new 5G, protocol.
Right.
Smart meters. Right. We talk about fluoride in Owasso and the water companies and stuff. They're all rolling out smart meters. Right. They're all powered on 5G. They're going to run on that network. So it's a major, multi-billion dollar project that's happening.
It is truly terrifying. Ultimately, it's an automated Stasi state that they're creating. They no longer need human agency.
It's already so far along.
Yeah, it's in its later phases, honestly, because they've already acclimated the population to the techno device matrix. So this is really, honestly, a refinement of that grid long term.
Yeah.
And who knows how pervasive these quote unquote generational systems are going to progress. I feel like it's just a matter of time before we're emitting our own signal. The biological androidification.
Yeah, they're going to find a way to extract electricity from our own biophysiology to power connected devices, which are going to be embedded. And that's another subject, right? Is transhumanism.
Right.
Everything that we're talking about there, it's all interconnected.
It is.
It's part of this experience. So 5G is just sort of it's more of a technical footnote,
right,
to a broader program that we're really trying to highlight here. So let's move on from health wars. I think we've covered that to the global currency reset, which we talked a lot about in our last episode, and specifically the idea of, again, going back to the white hat, black hat, red hat theme.
Right.
Who is engineering the future of finance? To what end? And will we see a creative destructive event or an overnight global impoverishment, or both? Are they the same thing? Right? Because if we were all of a sudden poor, what does that mean for me personally? Okay.
Yeah.
I can't go to the bank and get money to go to the grocery store and buy goods.
Right.
So that day, I'm going to start planning for the future, and it's not going to include the grocery store.
Right.
I'm going to have to do something else.
Right.
And in a way, I don't want the chaos and the death and the destruction, but the system is clearly unsustainable.
Right.
And so a transition to a sustainable system, albeit painful, might be a good thing. So that's, I've highlighted a couple here, major, financial commentators. You can just do your own search. Everybody worth their salt in economics are basically foreshadowing this concept of a global currency reset. What that means, is it a crash? Is it the ATMs turn off for 48 hours and then all of a sudden your account is credited with a certain, value, which, then we have to reset all the values with the physical goods that exist? I mean, what is it? I don't know. But it's coming. I've basically intuited that since probably 2012. Many people have been expecting it and are surprised it hasn't happened already.
Well, I mean, I think we see the sort of birth pangs of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We see the rise
the contractions.
Right. We see the rise of digital tokenization, decentralized finance. These are things that have promising linings around what is ultimately a very ominous storm cloud. Because who's going to be held accountable for creating all this fraud and a reset that, you're just going to wipe away all culpability of the violent system and say that, oh, well, it's okay if we just start afresh and we're still in the driver's seat. It's like,
right.
You have to extract the parasite before you can start a new fresh bill of health. You can't just pretend that it's gone and then all of a sudden, paper over the same symptoms by calling it a new system.
I think Amero, SDRs, Libras,
right? Yep.
Are destined for failure.
Yeah.
They're dead on arrival, actually, because you already have Bitcoin, you have Litecoin, you have a variety of peer-to-peer decentralized alternatives, and you have gold and silver and cigarettes and ammunition and dried food and other things that people recognize have value than another euro or a dollar or whatever. The authorities who, it is interconnected, and we're going to talk about that. So like the people who are financing 5G are related to the people who are involved with the Epstein scandal, and they're involved with central banking, and they're involved with the military industrial complex. And it's, if you can't connect the dots, then
you're not painting any picture. In your mind or otherwise.
Yeah.
You're just going along with whatever the next trend or fad or talking point is. You have to have a systematic overview of things.
Right.
And if that involves some estimated education and some speculation. But ultimately, is it efficacious?
Right.
Is it based on ongoing evidence with precedents, and is it near the target? Has it been suppressed? Has it been censored? What are the reasons for its scrubbing from mainstream history and quote unquote academic authentication of the topic or what have you?
Yeah.
So all of those things need to be brought into the light and fleshed out 100%. And it needs to become, regular common parlance amongst people.
And that's what we're doing here. That's
right.
what I hope for ZNN in 2020 is we've established sort of our own foundation, and can that's the goal. That's the goal, is to help bring some of these things to light. So the currency reset, it ties back to the Tesla conversation too, right? Because if free energy, quote unquote, and advanced propulsion systems, which we'll talk about a little later, are accessible to the general public, the currency situation completely changes. Even the cryptocurrency situation, right? The need to trade on such terms, it's almost eliminated.
Well, because
it's the Trump card, to use, to use a pun, I guess.
How about the decentralization of travel? Right now, it's centralized. It's only paved, quote unquote, controlled roads.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's retrograde. It's retrogressive. We've had safe levitation means, including drones.
Including quadcopters and hovercrafts and other...
Well, what is this mess of us going around on these ant trails all day? It's just crazy.
State roads, right?
Ugh.
Think of it.
Despicable. And
every time you get on it, you subject yourself to the military code of the police. Yeah. Right? You're dealing with that. I know you got a license expiration or something. No, an insurance expiration.
Yeah. It's just a bunch of nonsense. I mean, draconian measures over minimal amounts, essentially.
Right.
And that's their whole thing. They want to deliver you.
But hold on, for the listeners, the uninitiated, what happened? You got your license license plate revoked because of a few
day
lapse in insurance, right? You were putting the public at risk.
Oh, right. As if police aren't. I mean, anyway, the bottom line is, they want to deliver less services for more of your tax dollars. But in the event that there's a small infraction against them, they will try to wail out against you.
Yeah.
They will do everything in their power to extort you. I mean, that's mafia.
Listen,
it's mafioso.
I got a 32. Somewhere in this studio, I've got stacks of letters that I've gotten from the toll road agency. So they changed an exit near where I lived, which I normally would take to get through to my neighborhood.
Right.
They changed they changed that exit and installed a toll road. So that exit was eliminated. And when it first was put up, I accidentally went down the toll road because I was used to going this certain way, and I ended up getting like a 32-cent bill in the mail. And what's crazy about that?
And then they try to compound it 100x,
Well, I know what it costs for a stamp. It's 50 cents.
Right.
Or more. So it's more, plus the printing and the labor and the software to create the document and everything. It's probably $1.50 or so, all said and done, to send me the bill for 32 cents. And I'm like, so then I started looking into the toll road. It was constructed by a Spanish company which was bankrupt, who had a 50-year no-bid contract in North Carolina to maintain this toll road. And I'm like, I'm not sending you 32 cents. It's more expensive for me to send it than the 32 cents. And you've already wasted money. You're bankrupt already.
Right.
It blew my fucking mind. Yeah. And I was like, I'm not sending it. Then I get a $35 late fee.
Exactly. They 100x'd it.
$35 for a 32 cent. What kind of 30x? What's the math on that? That's more
100x.
It's unbelievable.
They did 100x it. That's what I'm telling you what. It's unreal.
And so I have never paid that.
Yeah.
I actually waited until the bill. So it was like they would add $35 until it got to $100, and then they would stop adding, and then that's what they would go after is the $100.
300x.
And I'm like, yeah, 300x, and I'm like, hell no, I'm not doing it. I waited until they had sent so many letters that it added up to more than the $100.
Whoa.
And it wasn't that. I mean, it doesn't take long.
It doesn't take that long.
2 years.
Yeah.
Of just getting them and ignoring them. But this is the degree to which they have pushed me, with this microtransaction, draconian extortion scheme, So anyways, that's more of, we're going to see more of that until, in those are the birth pangs, right? Shit like that rolling out, housing bonds and more taxes, all this registration, new registrations being invented everywhere. That's all part of the death, I think, of the system.
Yeah. And it's wild because it's really death pangs.
Death pangs, yeah.
And birth pangs simultaneously, because
depends on how you look at it.
Depends on how you look at it, really, because we don't really want to birth any residue of the dying system. Right. But the dying system is doing everything it can to parasite on to the next, form. Right. And in that sense, it really is an ongoing struggle and process of identifying those elements within the upper echelons that are trying to infiltrate and normalize their existence ad infinitum. So, global currency reset. Maybe it'll happen in 2020. I've been saying it's going to happen, tomorrow since 2008, really. So I don't know, but it's definitely coming ahead with all the Federal Reserve money printing and the distractionary tactics with the military and so on. Yep. I think 2020 might be the year. It might be the year. It's a big. There's such a huge bottleneck on so many fronts. Yeah, I mean, it's so many things are coming. So many of these singularities. This is the list, right? I think it could all happen because they can't juggle 1,000 different things. These novelties, at some point, something's going to give. Moments in history where more happens in a week than had happened in the preceding 100 years. And 2020 has been in sci-fi. It's been on all these different programs as such a pivotal year. I think it could, again, I said in the intro, converging singularities, these converging singularities into a mega singularity. I think it could happen. So moving on from currency reset, I'm sure we'll come back to that subject as it interconnects with other subjects. But definitely. I think the American election definitely makes the list, right? Because it's 2020. We got Trump here. And it's 2020 vision. Can we get clarity about the entire election process and what it really is? Yeah. And what it ultimately stands for? Listen, I heard some pretty good callers on InfoWars waging complaints about, Trump's done some good things, but here are some things that really have yet to materialize that glaring problems, right? Yeah. So all this hubbub, this is one of the callers, all this hubbub about election fraud with Russiagate, blah, blah, blah. He was vindicated on that. But, so he's vindicated on that, but where is he on the actual election fraud that's happening? The digital voting systems, the criminality on Republican and the Democratic side. Yep. Where if he doesn't get ahead of that, he is sowing the seeds of his own defeat or potential defeat because the system can always still be rigged. Now, absolutely. There was some reports on some of the fringes of the internet after he won in 2016, basically suggesting that the establishment had planned for Hillary to win that, but it was almost like a
a Winter Soldier.
It was sort of a Bush Gore moment a little bit too.
It was.
Yeah,
it was like some people actually see some computers and were like, you know what? No. Like Trump is going to be in. You know, we're actually taking control. And so like it's to me it was just opening the curtain and revealing to us that it's a high-level power struggle. It never was, what you voted for. It was
high-stakes horse race.
High-stakes, brinksmanship. It's warfare. It's straight up, that's where we're at.
It's monetary warfare because, I mean, there could be a higher bidder than Trump's faction in this year, in this election year. I mean, look at Bloomberg. I mean, he's a huge looming contender if he's committed to it. Now, he may decide to be like, oh, well, I'm already, a 30-plus billionaire. Like, I don't want to do this rigmarole in the president's office. Maybe he drops out. Who knows? And they put someone like a Bernie Sanders. But I think they'll rob it from him just like they did last time. They have to advance someone besides an old white man. So,
they haven't been able to find somebody as an alternative.
Yeah, because they have this like neurotic, anti-white thing going on. And it's pretty... It's pretty obvious to the casual observer at this point.
Yeah.
And, I mean, ultimately, Trump does have a pretty powerful faction behind him. And, Sheldon Adelson and
the Rothschilds, from what I understand.
Yep. So
a significant portion of the American citizenry.
Right.
I mean, that his rallies are well attended. He's got powerful campaign managers and advocates. I mean, Roger Stone is about the sneakiest guy you can imagine, and
definitely
he's being persecuted, with because of his work with Infowars and so on. And I think Infowars and Roger Stone and them they have been very influential in the whole calculus. Whether they were used by more powerful interests or are, in on that, I think that remains to be seen.
I think that, a lot of that is just kind of looking out for the bottom line and like what's succeeded in terms of presentation and selling points and things like that when it comes to an outfit like Infowars. And by design through that priority, sometimes some pretty crucial information and details about the things they support fall through the cracks. And that would be my major kind of sticking point on them, is that they sometimes don't look in the mirror quite enough, in that sense, because they are actually this sort of new alt mainstream, if that paradox makes sense. The alt media has become such this...
Well, you see folks like Alex Jones and Owen Benjamin trying to, start their ban.video and unauthorized.tv, and it's like sort of branding themselves as, like turning a negative into a positive. Like, they have been banned, they have been censored, they have been, marginalized by the establishment, and it's just trying to capitalize on that. I don't necessarily blame that. I mean, we do a similar thing with Zetetic.news. We're trying to brand ourselves in an appropriate way, and I think Alex Jones has a legitimate reason to do that. He has been really marginalized more than anybody else, but the question is, he almost he's been peripheralized. I don't know if he's really been marginalized because his talking points are still influential. Sure,
he's been sort of
peripheralized might be a better word. But it does seem like some of the the algorithmic inclinations of the major platforms, they are sort of building their AI around the Infowars archetype, and that is especially concerning.
It is.
But also, to Alex's point, oftentimes you're over the target when you're getting the most flack, and he is over the target many times.
Sure.
So it's going to ruffle some feathers. The question is, how will they, and this gets into other topics like surveillanceification of society and the internet censorship gate, which I think are major singularities for 2020. How is the public going to respond? How are the platforms going to deal with that because they
Right.
are they're having to innovate to keep up with their own authoritarianism. For example, they can't keep up with memes.
No.
How do you analyze optically a meme and so on? And
definitely.
so this gets into the next few topics: surveillanceification, the dronopticon society. But we're going to take a quick break and we'll get right back to number 5 next. This is Dave with Zetetic.news and the Zetetic newscast. We're back. And we're talking about the societal surveillanceification of our world and our realm. And this is old hat news. The question for 2020 from CNN is, if it was known to be an alien plot, what we see with the surveillanceification of the world, what won't we put up with? So, I mean, where do we start, right? I mean, everybody knows that their phone is listening to them, is watching them. Every new generation has, it seems like, 2 or 3 more cameras, gyroscopes, actuators, other sensors that are collecting data all the time. Edward Snowden was presenting old hat news that William Binney and other people had revealed to the public long before that. Now we've got, as an example, these new devices that are supposed to keep us safe. Ring, produced by Amazon. It's all, video and audio stored in the cloud. It's probably connected to the Alexa. All these new Internet of Things devices, which are providing us with some services that perhaps we find useful and convenient. They're also, interestingly, pretty inexpensive. But to what end? Is it really a service to us, or is it a service to those who seek to control and surveil? This is just tip of the iceberg, right? You've got some workers abusing their access to user data. Okay.
Of course.
Yeah, they get fired, no big deal. Is that the big problem? Or is the problem that a surveillance grid has already been erected and is just evolving at a dramatic speed?
Exponential.
And then the data is the most important thing, because these companies are treating data like the next oil, the next major commodity that is going to fuel the next generation of innovation. That's what they're saying. That's what they say. And so they're collecting video, they're collecting audio, they're collecting infrared, they're collecting geospatial information, elevation,
biometric data,
biometric and barometric.
Yeah.
The pressure,
elevation,
all sorts of information they are collecting. And what's it for? So here's another example of how that data is being mined. The FBI and the Immigration Service in the U.S. find state driver's license photos are a gold mine for facial recognition searches. So pictures that you provided ostensibly to gain the privilege of driving a motor vehicle this picture could have been taken years ago. It's being mined by the FBI to create ostensibly a framework to identify you by the shape of your face. Not just you, but this is ICE as well. So it's a global program.
Yep.
Right? What are the implications? What won't we put up with in 2020?
Well, it reminds me of the movie Scanner Darkly.
Yeah. How so?
In that
law enforcement at this time had already taken up anonymizing suits, so they could
circumvent
a system that could be used against them.
Right.
And of course, that's probably how that type of, shall we say, anonymity cloak technology would be rolled out, as they would probably have strict control over it, and
Right.
it wouldn't be publicly accessible. But ultimately, what if there was already enough research out there that could develop something like that in the private sector,
Right.
where people really could anonymize their identity,
Right.
according to this facial recognition.
It kind of reminds me of the Aaron Russo comment about what Nick Rockefeller said in his movie Freedom to Fascism. He talked about how in the New World Order, if you are a card-carrying member of the elite, whatever designation that is, in actuality, I won't ever know, but if you're a card-carrying member, it's the kind of thing where if you get pulled over, you show a card, and he described it as a KMA card, kiss my ass card.
Yep.
You know, and that's
probably had
a
about 10 of
light
those.
way of putting it. If Aaron Russo had maybe taken the next step, he probably would have,
Right.
you know, that extends to pedophilia and
Yep.
all sorts of other sinister, demonic type activities. So,
You know that Epstein could have had as many as 3 social security numbers.
you know, man, when I think about that, yeah, and we're going to get into that, the digitization of identity, the virtualization of such, and the capacity for just enormous fraud,
Identity theft.
hijinks, psychological operations,
Right.
Quadruple agent, you know, cloak and dagger type shit. I mean, that's how the intelligentsia agencies operate, is through this. Yeah, we'll get into that. So, another thing to look forward to in 2020 as it pertains to the surveillanceification of society is the Real ID. If you travel by air in the U.S., you may have noticed the TSA posting these signs everywhere, preconditioning you for this eventual requirement to get the, quote, Real ID. This was ostensibly a state-by-state thing that, you know, some states could honor or not honor. It seems like everybody's sort of lining up around, yeah, you're going to have to get the Real ID if you want to travel domestically or internationally at some point. Beginning October 1, 2020, every air traveler 18 years of age or older will need a Real ID compliant driver's license, state issued enhanced driver's license, or another acceptable form of ID to fly within the United States. So other acceptable form is actually federal ID, such as the passport, which already is a whole subject in and of itself, how they've established a global you know, paper system for travel. You know, that's a whole nother subject. But Real ID, what is it more than? I mean, what more is provided, you know, with the Real ID than a driver's license already? I mean, how do you identify yourself? Don't you just show up and say, I am who I am? You know, this is who I am. You know, a birth certificate, you know, that's one, you know, substantiating form, I guess, of your identity. But again, you can't really look at a birth certificate and then hold it up to a person's face and say, this is who they are. You know, that could be fake too. This is all just like
Color of law.
color of law.
Color of law type shit. I mean, ultimately, it's, you know, show me your papers, please.
Show me your papers, please.
They just want to, you know, regiment this fear-based reflex amongst the population to constantly present state validating forms.
So check this out. I'm talking to my mother-in-law about, I don't even know how it came up. Just maybe, I think I had a business trip and I mentioned that some like issue I had with the TSA. I usually have some sort of like altercation with them. And she mentioned that she had recently tried to get a Real ID. And I'm like, what was involved with that? And she was like, well, I didn't even get it. And I'm like, what do you mean you didn't get it? And she's like, well, I'm so damn frustrated because I was asked for all this other information, including my birth certificate, a driver's license, a mailing address with a bill that, showed where my mailing address was, maybe a couple other things. And she's like, I already have had a driver's license. I'm 63 years old.
Wow.
I've had one for decades and decades and decades. You already know who I am. I have a social security card. She presented all this information, and they wouldn't give her a real ID because her mailing address was a P.O. box, because they live in a rural location and the mail service doesn't actually go to their house. They go to a P.O. box that represents their block. And they wouldn't allow her to get a real ID. And I'm like, so what's real about it?
Right.
Like, what's more real about it?
Right.
It's such bullshit.
It's more Orwellian nonsense. I mean, this is a negative consequence of just having a sort of open borders, in and out kind of population base. I mean, we've had that really since 65 increasingly. And this is a draconian negative impact on, again, longstanding members of society that ought to be trusting, and they're operating as though they live in a high trust society, but they don't.
Right.
This is a proof that this is a global combine.
Right.
It's a globalist combine. We America, people just come and go all the time, and so we're going to
And the differences, honestly, the differences in the operations of their security forces, like when you travel, to them it probably just seems as, we just need to work on things, like to make them consistent, to get them all in line with one global standard.
That's right.
We're not there yet, but we're gonna get there.
We're getting there. I mean, this is well on its way. I mean, this is the stuff. They probably have RFID.
No, they do.
Yeah,
They do.
I'm sure they do. So, it's a tracking device, because most driver's licenses still are not fully chipped.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So that's what they're rolling out here.
Right. But amidst this effort to really penalize existing longstanding, citizens and the law-following American national, let's call it,
right,
they are giving driver's licenses to completely undocumented people.
Oh yeah,
all over the country.
Anyone with a heartbeat.
It's fucking unbelievable.
Yeah.
And those people who are undocumented but are driving on the road oftentimes evade consequences with the greatest of ease. Whereas, like you have a 4-day lapse in your insurance and lose your license plate.
Right.
Exactly. I get a parking ticket that I don't pay, and my car's impounded.
Right.
And I have an hour commute to my, it's like ridiculous.
And it's this, fantasy of the elite to just be able to capriciously level the playing field as they see fit. And the people, suffering the most are those who don't have, any recourse.
Right.
And that's increasingly most people.
Right. So an extension of the surveillanceification of society is what I call the drone opticon. And when we hung out we had our holiday visit, I really enjoyed showing you one of the stocking stuffers I got, which was this little toy plastic quadrotor drone that has like 6 infrared sensors on it. And I throw it up, and it just autonomously flies around my children's head and or over the stove while I'm cooking dinner and stuff. And I'm like, this is a $5 at best mass produced toy that was drop shipped from China and is in my stocking.
Right.
So the drone opticon is here. And actually, I want to pull up one of our Instagram posts. Yeah. I posted the panopticon is a type of institutional building and a system of control designed by the English philosopher and social theorist Jeremy Bentham in the 18th century. It was a design for prisons to give the impression that prisoners were always being watched. And then I juxtaposed that with the globe, the sphereocracy, the whatever you want to call it, the NASA artistic rendering,
Right.
Artist projection, with the supposed number of satellites that are around us, and it looks eerily similar to a panopticon. And I do think they are trying to create a panopticonic surveillance grid, not just with our cell phones and ring, doorbell ringers and so on, but with drones.
Absolutely.
And I've got some really compelling video to show you. I don't know if you've seen this yet, but I would love to get your reaction. The first is from the movie Interstellar, where they depict a future reality, which is actually a present day reality of solar powered or maybe some other advanced exotic special access technology that is powering these drones to just fly forever.
Plasma confinement, maybe.
Who knows?
Yep.
Compact fusion reactor. But check out this scene from Interstellar.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Murph, give me a second. Third. Find the gear, dumbass. Grind it.
Shut it, Tom!
What'd you do, Murph?
She didn't do nothing. Blew the tires off.
Murphy's Law.
Shut up!
Grab the spare, Tom.
That is the spare.
Get the patch kit.
How am I supposed to patch out here?
Oh, you gotta figure it out. I'm not always gonna be here to help you. What's going on, Murph?
Why did you and Mom name me after something that's bad?
Oh, we didn't.
Murphy's Law.
Murphy's Law doesn't mean that something bad will happen. What it means is that whatever can happen will happen, and that sounded just fine with us. Whoa! Get in. Get in, let's go.
What about the flat tire?
It's an Indian Air Force drone. Solar cells can power an entire farm. Take the wheel, Tom.
Go, go, go.
Get that aimed right at me. Faster, Tom. I'm losing it. Right at it. Stay on it. Here we go.
Whoa!
Nice one, Tom.
Dad?
You almost got it. Don't stop. Don't stop.
Dad!
Whoa!
You told me to keep driving.
Well, I guess that answers the old if I asked you to drive off a cliff scenario.
We lost it.
No, we didn't. Want to give it a whirl? Yes. Lay her down right there at the edge of the reservoir. Nicely done.
How long do you think it's been up there?
Delhi mission control went down same as ours 10 years ago.
It's been up there 10 years? Why'd it come down so low?
I don't know. Either the sun cooked its brain or it was looking for something.
What?
A large flat blade. Maybe some kind of signal? I don't know.
What are you going to do with it?
I'm gonna give it something socially responsible to do. Like drive a combine.
Can't we just let it go? It wasn't hurting anybody.
This thing needs to learn how to adapt, Murph. Like the rest of us.
Hi, I'm Kara, and I.
So I mean, so many layers of not only predictive programming,
Yep.
but just revelation of the method,
Mm-hmm.
revelation of what is already there.
Yeah.
I mean, these Hollywood movies require script approval by Department of Defense, State Department, CIA, etc.
Mm-hmm.
in order to use some of the props that they use and the monikers.
Right.
You know, I think that was supposed to be an Indian Air Force drone, but
Yeah.
in this future, everybody has drones. They're solar powered. They're always flying. They're autonomous. They're artificially intelligent. He said that drone was looking for something. Let's give it something more socially responsible to do.
I wonder how much fuel, how much jet fuel is required to power a drone. Oh,
Well, we don't know because the patents, which describe essentially perpetual sources of energy, they're owned by the Navy and Lockheed
Northrop
Martin
Grumman,
and Northrop
yeah.
Grumman and all that stuff. So I just wanted to juxtapose this Hollywood depiction of what is supposed to be sci-fi, right?
Mhm,
It's a sci-fi movie.
right. It's
Science
supposed to be
fiction, right?
fictional.
With actually a dated detail. When was it? 2013. The Argus IS.
1.8 gigapixels.
1.8 gigapixels. It's essentially, I don't know if we'll play the whole clip in it if it details this, but just to sort of spoil it,
Yeah.
it's a bunch of cell phone sensors
Mm.
because ultimately they're just bidding with silicon traffickers, processor dealers and sensor manufacturers, right?
Right.
And they are like, oh, well, it's really cheap to get a 1 megapixel sensor that would be normally installed on a cell phone, and then stitch them all together. That's what they did, and then they put it on a drone. Check this out. It's
And
incredible.
of course, it's a DARPA thing.
Right, it is a DARPA thing. And what's key giveaway is they're like, this is what we're now allowed to disclose. They say it right here. This is like a PBS thing or
So,
something.
7 years ago.
Check this out.
This is the next generation of surveillance. For the first time, we actually have permission from the government to show the basic capabilities. It is important for the public to know that some of these capabilities exist.
Engineer Yanis Antoniadis designed the new sensor, known as Argus. With 1.8 billion pixels, it's the world's highest resolution camera. Argus fits inside this pod that attaches to the belly of a UAV. But because much of the work is classified, we can't see the sensor itself.
Because we are not allowed to expose some of the pieces that make up the sensors, so you get to look at pretty plastic curtains.
Also known as Wide Area Persistent Stare, Argus is the equivalent of having up to 100 predators look at an area the size of a medium-sized city at once. This image was taken 17,500 feet above Quantico, Virginia, and covers 15 square miles.
This whole image is at a very, very fine resolution. So if we wanted to know what is going on in any spot along this image, say near this building at this intersection, we can generate a moving image that shows what's going on in the area.
Simply by touching the screen, Antoniades has opened up a window showing a detailed area, while still maintaining the broader context.
And everything that is a moving object is being automatically tracked. The color boxes represent that the computer has recognized the moving objects. You can see individuals crossing the street. You can see individuals walking in parking lots. There's actually enough resolution to be able to see the people waving their arms or walking around, what kind of clothes they wear. And you could pick the location of where you produce these images anywhere in the entire field of view.
Antoniades can open up to 65 windows at once and can see objects as small as 6 inches on the ground.
From even 17,500 feet, the white thing that you see flying around is a bird.
Argus streams live to the ground and also stores everything, 1 million terabytes of video a day, which is the equivalent of 5,000 hours of high-definition footage.
So you can go back and say, I would like to see what happened at this particular location 3 days, 2 hours, 4 minutes ago, and it would actually show you exactly what happened as if you were watching it live.
To create the world's highest definition camera, Antoniades needed to design a new imaging chip. But DARPA, the project's funder, wanted to move fast and keep costs down. So he borrowed technology that most people have in their pockets.
Inside this cell phone, okay, we find a tiny little camera. So if you were to take off the majority of it, you'd be left with an imaging chip. If you were to take 368 of these and make a big mosaic out of them and start shooting images, now you have Argus.
Unlike the...
How incredible is that?
This is 7 years ago.
2013.
7. Just
Now we're in
wow.
2020, and your iPhone has 3 of those on the back of it.
Yeah.
And a high sensitivity microphone that can detect far and distant voices, gyroscopes, actuators, other technology which is classified that sense infrared, other spectrums of imagery. And the AI is already alive. It's already been born. Okay. They've already been able to teach the AI what looks like a car because they've standardized the cars.
Yeah.
They standardized the license plates. They know what a human looks like.
Yeah.
They can estimate that with algorithms. They can track that. Even the consumer drones, as I was alluding to with the stocking stuff, for example, even the $2,000, which should be $300 drone that you can get on the retail market, you can, with your iPad, draw a little box around a moving object and it'll track it. And that quadrotor will follow it and withstand wind and all of that. It's
right.
These things are flying like interstellar all the time. Everywhere. As far as they can send them with the battery technology that they have access to, which is more than what they allow to be in your iPhone, whatever number it is at this point.
Well, I mean, and what's keeping them from using this high-level imaging technology to just produce illusions?
Produce illusions and also control the entire... I mean, who does cartography anymore? do you actually map anything that any terrain that you traverse, or do you just use GPS? I just use GPS. I'm guilty as charged. That I'm not a cartographer. I haven't tried to map the terrain. That is a lost art.
However, it's possible that in the future decentralization of information will allow certain schematic leaks, you might say, of real-time positioning of these aerial entities. And if you patchwork that together, are you gonna find curvature?
You heard the man say it. You only need 368 cell phone sensors, stitch them together in a mosaic, and you've got Argus. Now, that's an oversimplification because Argus is attached to a drone, but these technologies are coming into the hands of consumers, and people will have, I would say, I mean, compared to all of our ancient ancestors, more capacity to explore more easily with less personal risk.
Definitely.
And so the age of discovery is here. With these, it's the monopolization of the technology that's the
biggest problem.
Right? So it's all in the hands of the military industrial complex. They've got all the toys and the financing to do with it what they want. And it's all, as we see with the Iran drone strike, that wouldn't be possible without all this crap. Right? So, let's move on to a couple military applications to just sort of highlight the problem with this technology. You know, because we need to take it into our own hands. That's what 2020 is about: is taking these singularities and sort of turning them into positive developments for ourselves.
Roswell Flight Test Crew, here today at AUVSI Exponential 2017. And I'm here with Arnie Sharpie at the FLIR booth, who's got the Black Hornet on the scene for us. So tell us a little bit about this guy, and you've got him strapped to your chest.
Yeah, hello Patrick, it's good to be with you here. This is the complete system of the Black Hornet here. We designed this system some years ago to give the dismounted squad and the single operator their own set of eyes out there, so they didn't have to call up higher authorities to get some support, but that they had an easily and quickly deployable tool for situational awareness around them.
And can we actually take a look at one of these aircraft? I mean, they're so small. I've never seen one personally.
If you look at this now, let's open one of the cargo bays in the base station, and that brings out one of the sensors, a small helicopter with a total weight of 18 grams. This is the day version with a rechargeable battery here in the belly, a sensor package at the front here with the 3-day cameras, and then you have the engines and the rotors and of course the rest which is needed. But a weight of 18 grams, a range we say up to a mile, and it provides then live stream video and still pictures back to the operator. So
amazing. Can I hold it?
Yeah, sure.
That is just wow. I mean, I've seen photos of this. I've seen photos of people holding it, but until you actually hold it in your own hand, it's just impossible to say how lightweight and small this thing is. It's amazing.
The human brain is wired in a strange way. When people see this for the first time and get it in their hands, the first thing they think is toy. But this is as far as it gets from a toy. It's an incredible advanced ISR platform for the soldiers out there.
Now how does a soldier...
Holy moly.
You want one?
Wow.
I want one.
Yeah.
I want one.
Absolutely.
Situational awareness. In this, we'll talk about the potentiality of civil war,
right,
and global war, hot war.
We're gonna need these.
I mean, why not?
Yeah.
We invented it. It should be used for defensive and justifiable purposes.
But I mean, think about the voyeuristic potential of these. I mean, it's really Brave New World times 100. I mean, it's wild.
Let's just leave it at that. This is the last one on the drone Opticon because it really ties it all together in that regard. You know, talking about Brave New World.
Okay, that is a small glimpse of how phenomenal coordinated, small-scale swarming of these drones can be used to mimic all kinds of natural patterns, trace all kinds of finite small things, and even in a popular film, I mean, we're talking like a kiddie fantasy Marvel comic blockbuster, the Spider-Man movie that came out this past summer, literally depicts Project Bluebeam level holographic projections of drone swarms that are used by this fantasy villain.